Okay, we're going to talk about how to determine if PPC is profitable in my niche, or respectively speaking on your behalf here, how to know if PPC is profitable in the business niche that you're in. Now, I will say right off the bat that this is the question that everybody's asked themselves at least once if they're in business. Everybody uses Google. Everybody's been curious. I wonder if those ads actually work there on Google. Or, of course, they maybe seen some of their competitors' ads around on Facebook, on some other website, what have you. So what this video here today is going to put into perspective if their ads likely work and if they will actually work for you in a similar way, better or worse than your competitors, and how to assess the situation without blowing a whole huge wad of cash and learning a lesson that you don't need to learn. Most of the people who are going to get into PPC, they see the ads, they see that they think they'll work automatically, which is not a bad assumption, but then they go into it just totally winging it. For the most part, I'll start out by saying if you spend 15 minutes to plan out your PPC campaign, it's probably not going to make money. I see a few people that have amazing products and services that are in a space with a high moat, a higher barrier to entry that can make that work. But for everybody else, that's not going to work. You need to watch some of my other videos to understand the very basics of setting up a campaign, or hire somebody who's not just anybody, not just the cheapest, not just the one that has a pretty website. You got to figure out who actually knows how to do better than 80% of the people in your space if it's going to work. Because 80% of the money that people make, or 80% of the people who do PPC in your space, if there's PPC ads there now, make little to no money. 20% takes most of it. So you're not just trying to get in and do what everybody else is doing. This isn't a Yellow Page ad. Or if you want to think about Yellow Pages, it's the equivalent of being number 1 there versus being number 10. Nobody calls that number. But it's all comes down to strategy, whether or not it will work, assuming that it will work in your niche. But going back to the actual question of will it work in my niche? Is it possible to work in my niche? Is there money there? Is there customers there? Is there profitable customers that are going to cost more than what it costs to deliver the product or service I have, and the cost of the advertising, and potentially the cost of the PPC manager I need to help manage this as well long term as all this extra business is coming in? So to answer that question, I've broken this down to 2 different types of categories of businesses here. B2C, or directly to consumer product sales and services, and then where you're selling to businesses directly, not in consumers, and which we call B2B. So anyway, I'm going to go through each one of these, and I'm going to give examples of different businesses where there's certain things that will stop you from making money in PPC, so you know what they are, and the type of businesses where that'll give you an idea of where that actual feature or aspect of PPC would apply, where I've seen it stop a campaign from making money, and in general what will make money, and the type of companies that can make money using PPC. As I go through each one of these individual points, you have many different examples to run with, other than just the theory behind this itself. So anyway, to get started on starting with the B2C side, as long as there's demand for what you sell in general, you can sell it with PPC on a B2C product or service. Because we're in the 2020s now. Everybody uses Google for the most part, and they're looking for a product. They're going to look for it on Google. Of course, there's people that spur of the moment, shoppers in the store will buy something, but for the most part, if you're talking about micro niche, stuff that's not normally just sold through Amazon, they're using Google. I mean, this is just the way that it is now. For B2B, you're also using Google now as well if you don't have a referral, so it's the same thing there. But if you know that people are going online and there is a market, basically is what I'm trying to say. If there's actually demand for what you sell and people are searching for it online in some regard, PPC will work. It's just a matter of setting up the ads so that it's not done in a totally incorrect manner and you don't wing it, like I said. If you have a new idea and you know that if people start buying this, they're going to find out about it, and then it's going to catch on. And so the other words aren't searching for it. It's not a defined market yet. You can still make it work as long as you know that you can get some virality in it. If you have a jam or a jelly that you make, and you think that if people try this jelly, it will work. Well, condiments and stuff like that, that's how it's done. They run out of a loss for a while, and eventually it gets the virality part of it going, and then it makes money. You could run Facebook newsfeed ads for something like that. And for me, if that's what I'm doing, I'm going to send people to a nice long landing page from Facebook that explains like everything I could possibly think about that product or service so that the person that's interested gets all the information they want to know. And then I'm also seriously considering if I can giving a sample, because it's a very high hurdle to jump over, getting someone to buy something that they normally would not think to buy and have no background of buying. They don't know, haven't heard of it, they don't know about it. So, but anyway, assuming that there is demand, we're talking about the other 98% of business ideas here. If you can't sell it via Google search, as nobody is searching for it on Google, or how people need to find it, people don't know how to search for it. There's certain businesses where that's the case. I was just thinking of today, they have those little temperature gauges where they have the little glass vials in a long glass tube. It's called a Galileo temperature gauge, but a lot of people don't know what that's called. So that's a situation where Google, search ads may not work because there's no defined way that people are searching for this that they know how. Then, if you can't do, in other words, Google search ads because there's nobody searching there for it, then you got an alternative to just go after, assuming you have a LTV or the value of what you can sell that product for over the whole lifespan of selling it to that customer once they've purchased at least one of it. If that customer is worth more than $100, you can use display advertising and then just simply get in front of the competitor's audience. So, like going to the example of the Galileo temperature gauge, there's other people selling it. There's stores that specialize in it, hypothetically here, right? Then I'm going to simply create what is called a custom intent audience that has all the websites of all my direct competitors that sell this product already. And then I'm going to tell Google what that audience that I make, I want my banner ad to be in front of all the people that already go to those stores, indicating maybe they already bought, but a lot of them haven't bought and they're in the process of buying or about to buy when they get paid or something like that. And I'm going to tell them specifically why my Galileo temperature gauge is better quality or cheaper or whatever my unique USP is. And if you're getting into the market, you better have a USP, because otherwise, why are you getting into business? You go to the review sites, you find out what people want more of, you implement that into your business as your differentiator, and then you advertise that to the people who are already going to your competitor's site. So in other words, if people are already looking for it on Google outright, which is my first stop that I'm going to go with, then I'm going to do the going after people who've been to my competitor sites. That will be my second option. But between those two, generally always will be able to do one or the other. Unless of course the combination of you're unlucky enough to have where nobody's searching for it on Google and you can't make more than $100 with it, well then, respectively, you kind of you're shit out of luck. That's less than 5% of products and services out there when you consider a customer's worth more than $100 because of all the additional purchases they will make. So if we want to just say 95% of businesses, B2C will work, and now you kind of know where it won't work or where I usually tell somebody, or this is probably not going to work. If you sell something for less than $100 but people are searching for it on Google, then it's totally fine because the clicks are priced that you pay for on Google search are priced based upon an auction system. So I've sold stickers for a client, and the cost per click was $0.10. And yeah, the sticker only sold for $3, okay? But because the lower the price of the product, the higher the conversion rate you can expect overall. So the conversion rate will be closer to 5-10%. So we're going to sell a $3 sticker for 80 cents, and the math kind of works out then. Okay, so it all is relative. It doesn't matter for what you're selling it for. It only this $100 rule only takes into effect when you're running the display advertising to our competitors, as mentioned. Why? Because the cost per click is still going to cost you 10, 20, 30 cents, regardless of what you do. So if you aren't going to sell it for very much, you run into a situation, no matter how efficient it gets, that the ROI won't simply be there. It'll cost you, $20 to sell a $50 product, and it's not conducive to what we call direct response marketing, and you have to find another way to market your product. So direct response marketing, PPC being one of those. So anyway, you get the general idea there. The other exception with the B2C side is, or situation where you might run into, is if you have a product or service that you're selling to the consumer that more than 1% of the general populace can buy and want to buy and is apt to buy, then you don't have to even go to Google search. You don't have to market it to your competitor, people who've been to your competitor sites. You can go straight to Google Display, or sorry, not Google Display, Facebook newsfeed ads with that one, and you can run it there. I had a company that helped disabled people with tax credit filing and then take a part of the tax credit from the person for helping them file for it. This was in Canada, and it's multi-$1,000 tax credit. And with that, there's more than 1% of the population that's disabled. So we just basically targeted everybody. And then we just took the lowest cost clicks as we can get. And that's the type of situation you would run into if you know that 1% of the population would actually be amused by and would want to buy what you have because you have a good way of displaying it, or there's just a good value proposition there. Newsfeed ads are fantastic for getting in front of people and demonstrating a new idea, and in general, because of the size of the ad. And that's why I also like it to get out brand new ideas that nobody's heard of yet as well. So anyway, from a B2C perspective, which 95% of the time it will work, and I gave you this a few times where it wouldn't work, and the one or two situations where you don't have to use Google search, or where Google search won't work because the search demand is not there because people don't know what to search for or how to search for it. You got a couple other options, the custom intent audience, as I mentioned, and then Facebook newsfeed ads. So anyway, we're going to move into the B2B side of the equation now. So all the rest of you guys out there, basically. Now, if there are people already advertising for your terms, you can generally already bet that there is money in there if you can do it better than 80% of the people already are. So I mentioned earlier that 20% of the people who advertise, if you're in a space where there are PPC ads you can see on Google search, there's probably 20% making 80% of the money. That Pareto principle applies to this. Either they don't know they're not making money because they don't have tracking set up, or they didn't spend much time on it, and therefore it's inefficient. They didn't put their work in to make it work, make it efficient for the consumer or the user, and for Google to reward them. So what you do, in other words, to know if B2B PPC will work on Google search, is you just simply type in about 5 or 10 of your terms that come up at the top of your head of what would represent people that would want to look and find what you sell. If you don't find any ads, then it probably doesn't work. Now, it's not a guarantee. You could try it if you want, but respectively, you're probably not the first one who's thought of that. Like I said, the golden rule is everybody's thought of this once. There's people probably that tried it, didn't work, they stopped, and that's why there's nobody there. You'll especially know if it works if there's 4 ads up on top of Google, because any highly profitable niches will always generally, maybe not on every single search, but you'll see a lot of searches where there's 4 ads on top of Google, not just 1 or 2. If you search for more than one term, Google will start to not show you any ads because you're not clicking on them. Just as a side note about that, some people don't realize that. So anyway, that tells you just in general if the search ads will work. And for B2B, let's just say between 50 and 100%, somewhere in that range, the Google search ads will work. And so I don't know the exact percentage if I think about all niches, because there's so many B2B businesses out there. But if we say 60%, draw that number out of the hat, of businesses can make the search ads work, because there's people already advertising for our keywords in our niche, and they're there, and therefore we want to take our piece out of the pie. I mentioned you, by the way, again, have to do better than 80%. So it'll work for you if there's ads there, assuming that you're going to go and spend the time to do it. Study yourself or hire the right person that you know for a fact can do it, not just anybody who says they can do it. Because 90% of the people in our business of PPC managers can't get good results. That's a reality. So you have to know you have the right person, and once you have the right person, you have to make sure you pay them enough so they're not going to tell you what you want to hear and just do the bare minimum because that's what you want to hear. You spend the few hundred hours to set up the best campaign possible, blow everybody out of the water, then you'll for sure make money, assuming the ads are there already. Then you're just taking your piece at that point. Now, if there are no defined terms that describe what you sell yet, or you need a certain size company that Google will not provide, which both of those things are situations where the Google search ads won't work. Either they're not searching for it, that's one, but the other big problem that I see where the search ads won't work, and where it's only 60% versus 90% or 95% on the B2C side, the search ads will work. The difference between 65 and 95 is because the type of customer that comes in is a low price customer. Now, I don't want to say low price customer, because if you think about it, if you're going to hire just anybody off of on a Google search, well, that you're probably risking less. So what you're willing to pay less, you're risking less overall. If you're going to spend $500,000, you're probably going to go work harder to find a referral from somebody. Versus if you're going to spend $5,000, Google's good enough. So and it varies based upon how much you're spending, roughly speaking. So if you're running the Google ads, you see other people doing it, but your customers, you're not satisfied with the type of customer you're getting, then what you do is you go and build a custom email list and you advertise to people that way. So what I mean by that is you go and you physically, if you know you need a company with at least 500 employees that buys this service, and so they do that, and you need to talk to the facility manager, whatever, you find out 2 or 3 or 4 traits that describe your decision maker at the company you're searching for and that would buy. And then you go hire a firm that can collect information and get you those exact people, their first name, last name. Either they'll buy the information or they'll compile it manually. And they'll get you their email address. You need their personal email address. And then what you could do is you could take that list of email addresses and you go to AdRoll, adroll.com, and you upload your list there. And then you set a banner ad up and you speak to the person, that perfect buyer that you want ultimately, why it is that person who works at a 1,000-employee company, who is a facilities manager, why they should buy your grease product versus the grease product that they have already. You have very clear in your ad what your intentions are. So what the benefit is to them clicking on that ad. You'll be able to save 50% on your grease needs every month by using this grease. Click here to find out why. They go to a landing page, a video or a long form landing page that explains this product, why it's going to save that exact person. Because you know that you're getting in front of this exact type of person. You can talk to, say, for facility managers who use grease, that's the kind of funnel that you need for something like this. But you can do that and get customers that way. So that would bypass Google completely. Going back to Google though, this is very gray hat tactic here. You're not supposed to do this, but other people, they'll upload that same email list to Google as long as they spent over $50,000 on Google already. And then when somebody searches for my keywords on Google, the way that I tried it before, I could tell Google, because I'm willing to spend for that, it's under the audience tab, I'm willing to spend, let's say 1,000% more for people who are on this list versus not on my list. Then if they search for my keyword and they're not on my list that I made, my email list that I made, my ad won't trigger. But if they are on the list, it will trigger. That's how that's set up. So then out of the 10% of people that you were paying for before on Google search, that was actually the size of company you need, or 5, I've seen it where it's only 5% or 2%. Now all of a sudden, that 2%, unless that 2% is searching, you aren't paying to get them to your site. So now it's ROI. It's possible to get ROI on that campaign. Whereas before, that would be in a situation where you literally can't work with the company under 500 employees. That's what you need to do. And other times, you'll get a customer that makes you $1 million. The average customer makes you $10,000, even though you don't like the $10,000 customers. When you average it all out, the advertising is worth it. And so a lot of B2B guys also don't think about that. You have to get 100 customers to know what the value of the Google search traffic is for B2B, because the deal sizes vary so much. Maybe you'll get lucky right away, but it might be not until your 50th deal to where you get a $1 million sale. So you got to factor in all the sales over a reasonable data set to know how it's going to do. So, if people aren't searching for what you sell, like I said, you can go on AdRoll. You can also sorry, I got it. I have to make a correction. You can do Google Display Network to also get on any other websites in front of the facility managers, like I talked about before with your email list on Google Ads through Google Display Network. That actually is where it takes $50,000 to actually do on Google Display Network. And because Google charges, they want you to have spent $50,000 already. That's why I use AdRoll. But in terms of filtering out the search traffic, like I described, so that if a person has to be over such and such size of company to have our ad trigger on Google search for our keywords, that part you don't need to have spent $50,000. I got it slightly mixed up there. I got it backwards. So anybody who wants to narrow it down to people who are at least 1,000 employees, then your email list is your way to do it. There's also a way, as a side note, you can make an audience, custom intent audience. I talked about a custom intent audience back here in regards to competitors, and so if somebody hasn't been to your competitor's site, well then we'll stay away from advertising from them. Well, there's a custom in the targeting options in Google Display Network campaign settings. You can create an audience that is just for people who work at companies with at least 50 employees, 100, 500, 1,000. They have that in there now. So as opposed to getting the email list and uploading that to Google and using that to filter your ads to just the size of companies that you need and want, you can similarly try to use the employee size filter in there. But it's not nearly as good as handpicking and getting the email list of the exact person that you want. It just is not as accurate. It's not as good because somebody could work at the company, but it's not the right person. You're not getting the decision maker. Whereas if you're hand collecting the email addresses, you can get the exact decision maker, the facility manager, and their email. So that if that exact person's not searching, it's not going to show up. And it's just more precise in general if you're going to do the email, because you can verify it by going to the site and looking at the About Us page and all that. D&B data, which is not that accurate either, but you get my point. So if the search ads are not there, you would just run a display campaign to the hand-built email address that you have. And if the search ads are not profitable because you don't have the right size of company, then you're going to use your email address to filter the people that aren't the right size out of your search campaign to begin with. Okay, so if you combine the fact that you can use this email address list technique with regular Google search ads, if there's people, there's demand for your product, 95% of the time you can make B2B work as well. So they're both 95% of markets. PPC will work whether it's B2B or B2C. You just have to have these workarounds I described to you here. And here, if you want to be able to make it work basically every time. Now, there's a couple other small caveats I'm going to talk about, gotchas or whatever, before I end this video so that you are fully prepared in doing PPC for yourself for the first time. So first thing is, if you're trying to sell something. I had a client trying to sell a vitamin product, a new chewable vitamin, and if the companies you're competing against, so that you wanted to sell on B2C company, obviously, the people on Google search that are showing up there, those people can sell that product to the customer more than once. So if you're expecting to sell your product to that person and make money on the first purchase, you're kidding yourself, because they're pricing the ads as if they're going to get they understand the full value of the customer is not $10, it's $95, because that person makes on average 5 purchases, and once they sell it to them online, they'll be buying it in store, so they have a big advantage on you. So you have to look at the lifetime value of a customer when you're talking about stuff that most people are going to buy more than one of in more than one event. And you got to look at your lifetime value of a customer, and you got to be able to price your ads accordingly. And it may take you a year, 2 years, 3 years to make the PPC actually profitable in terms of money in the bank, because it takes time with the people that you sold to come back and buy again and then buy again, and then now you got your actual profit. So in those markets like that, skincare products and stuff like that, you got to be thinking about things that way. So that's one of the major mistake I see people make. The other one is, if you want to do PPC right and you're not happy with the ROI yet, you did everything I told you here, then you can niche down one more level. So like, I don't know, a person who was they were a printing company, they did all kinds of printing, you know, for, you know, it was flyers and envelopes and business cards and all that stuff, really like an online printing shop. Well, they niched down, they made a site just for flyers, and they just nailed that, and the ROI went from like 3-to-1 to 8-to-1 by doing that. And so generally speaking, if you aren't quite getting the ROI that you want and you see your competitors doing it already, then if you niche down one more level like that, then you got your edge now. If you didn't have an edge before, that's your edge. So it's something that we have to do a lot of times. Tacking on to whatever I said here, sometimes it's just, you know, advantageous to us to niche down. But if you do everything I told you here and you have the ability to niche down to whatever level, or if you're a company like a B2B company that sells, you know, to other businesses, target a certain industry and you create a landing page just for that industry and then make about 50 other landing pages for all the other industries, that'll give you enough edge to get the ROI to probably wherever you want it as well, because nobody else is willing to put that effort in. So if you're not getting the ROI you want today, that's what I'm immediately doing right after I see with a reasonably good setup campaign that I know is, you know, better than almost everybody else's that's there. I'll just niche down one more notch and then I'll have it. So the flyers was an example there I wanted to give you on how that works. Going back here before I wrap this up, there was so for the B2B where we used the email list to filter down the companies that weren't of a certain size. We had a construction software company that sold construction software that could only sell it to big construction outfits. And most construction companies, as you can imagine, or if you didn't know, are mainly small companies. So when they were looking for construction software, it was, you know, 95% small companies. And so the PPC literally wouldn't work until we had a way to filter out, and it only Google search ad would only show up for people that are certain size. And so with the email list, and then having the ability to have the email list of all the top companies' contacts, uploading that to Google, now the Google search ads will work. Respectively, if you actually do go into the position where you actually are going to use that email technique to make the search ads on Google filter down more, so you have just that perfect size of customer or type of customer you want that searches for your keywords in a B2B space, I'm also using that same email list to target them on ad roll, with the banner ads like I talked about you could do as well. I'm not going to just use it for Google search. I'm going to use it for Google display both. I'm not generally, because you got the email list, it'll work for both almost every single time. So if I need to use you can break down the B2B PPC as if you need to use an email list or either you need to use the email list or you don't. But if you are able to use the email list, the 95% you can get something working using the information I give you here. For like the construction software company, we got a list of all the buyers. Well, in that case, we could just say, our software saves our construction companies, 67% of the time, of the audit time every single year. Your ad says the benefit, you send them to the landing page that talks to the person who would normally buy the software, how it saves you the 60% of time in auditing every year. You get the general idea. It was like the example that I gave you before about the grease selling the grease product. So anyway, that's everything in a nutshell. If you like this video, I have a lot of other videos like this on this channel that you can check out. Different PPC strategies, money-making PPC strategies. I also have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog where I talk about and show in detail how to build campaigns like I build them here, as I described on this video, as well as many others, if you prefer to read and see information about building campaigns in that kind of format. Other than that, if you have any questions, leave me a comment down below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, and I appreciate your time and hope you enjoyed and go out and use this information. Start doing PPC, see how well it works for your company.